agricultural extension office and combine that list and then randomly draw our sample. So we had in total 300 male farmers and 134 female farmers, and that proportion was chosen based on the proportion of the actual maize growing farmers population. And then we also asked this local NGO that we want to hire male and female enumerators if they can help us hiring, recruiting them. So they sent us CV of all the interested enumerators, and there were male enumerators and female enumerators, and then FAMIDA selected who to recruit. And also the sub-district level logistics were provided by this NGO, training room facilities and car and everything. And then we had our survey coordinator who did the training, implementation, and overall management, making sure that everything is functioning smoothly. And then we also had supervisors. We had 6 survey teams, and for each survey team we had 1 supervisor, and each survey team we had 2 male enumerators and 1 female enumerator. So supervisors were responsible for making sure that the data is good quality. They are also responsible for collecting the GPS coordinates and the village level logistics, making sure that everybody is safe and sound, particularly the women. So then the question is whether we had difficulties hiring female enumerators. And our experience shows that there was no difficulties at all. There was a large number of interested female enumerators. These are some of the pictures. So this is our survey team, and these are the groups going to each sub-district. And this is a picture of our training. This is their commuting to the field and doing interviews, and she's monitoring the survey. As you can see that they are little conservative. They're all wearing hijab, but also they're very progressive because they're standing side by side with men. They're sitting next to men and receiving training. They're commuting, sitting in the same vehicle with the men. And this is a woman respondent. She is also, there was also one case where a male enumerator interviewed female respondents. And there was some difficulties initially, but then we handled it because with our local collaborators who introduced our interviewer, and then he was around when the survey was done. So initially there was a little bit hesitance, but then this fell into places eventually. And also in terms of logistics, in terms of involving women, I asked Famida whether she had any experience where women were slow understanding receiving the training, whether there was any significant difference in the performance in male and female enumerator. And the answer was not so much. And also in terms of the local people, how the local people reacted, how the NGO reacted when we wanted to involve women enumerators and women respondents. And her response was that it was the most normal thing for them, that women will be part of the survey. And all these enumerators, they were married, and their family, their husbands were very helpful, very supportive for them to go to work. They were accompanying them in places, going to remote places. Sometimes the husbands were coming with these enumerators to make sure that they can reach the place, the household safely. So all in all, in summary, we didn't face any resentment from the local level at all. And quite surprisingly, the support was really unexpected. And also there are cases where she was working with these female enumerators, and the other farmers who saw her working, they sent her their daughters to her and asking for work, that if you have any work, then we will be happy to, this is what I have done, this is my education, I'll be very happy to work with you. And so there were three levels where gender was embedded in our survey. One is our coordinator, who was a female. She went to this very remote conservative place, lived by herself for 2 weeks, and she managed this entire survey by herself. And then we had female enumerators and female respondents, and at no level we faced any negative experience. Then let me explain the sample, describe our sample. So in this, socio-demographic characteristics, there's not much difference between male and female. And as you can see that 23% of the female were head of household. Well, that's what you expect. They were not the head of the household. But interesting observation here that in terms of land and non-land assets, there's significant difference between male and female respondents. So they also have less cultivable land and less non-land asset. So this means that in households where women are involved in agriculture, they are relatively less wealthy and they have less cultivable land and they come from relatively less wealthier families. And then we ask them who makes agricultural decisions, and in 10% of the male respondents say that they make all the agricultural decisions in consultation with their spouse, and 86% women say that they are consulted when agricultural decisions are made. And only 10% of our samples say they make all the agricultural decisions. Now, also in terms of household expenditure, 88% are consulted, whereas only 70% men consult their spouse when they make household expenditure decision. So we have hit a roadblock here.
Can I ask you a question, please, Sonia?
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting that the males said, only 10% of them said that they consulted with the spouses. I would have loved to have seen the question also asked to the spouse to see.
Yes, I know, I agree, but unfortunately we did not ask the husband and wife from the same household. But if you think they're randomly selected, then this number is quite shocking, right? And I wonder whether it's a perception.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
So maybe these women, they think they're consulted.
Or maybe the men think that they're not consulting with their spouses.
Yeah, so we don't know. But I can't conclude with certainty because it's not the same household. But the gap is too big, right? It's significant that 10% of the men think they consult and 86% think they don't. But this has an implication for our study because we were testing this hypothesis that whether women know the cost and return information or not. Turns out that they don't. So we did our pre-test, and women, when we pre-tested, they couldn't give information of all the details. And they also, in some cases, they couldn't make up their mind. They couldn't make decisions. They looked at all the options and they think, I don't know, I can't decide, I have to talk to my husband. And then we looked at each other and said, okay, what do we do now? Now we have a problem. Now, should we then exclude all the women, all the women farmers, and go focus, because this is a waste of our time and money? Then we came up with a very innovative idea. We said, okay, let's do this. Let's include an additional module to track decision-making process. So what we did for female respondents particularly, we phoned them in advance and we asked them, would you be able to give information about cost and return of maize production? And if they say, no, I don't have all the information, I know some, but my husband actually knows this, or another male member of the household knows this, then we say, can you ask that male member or your husband to stay at home during this and this time, because we will come to interview you. And then we went there, but then one can argue that, okay, how do you know that the decision making wasn't affected because the man was there or the other male member was there? So this is why we included this module for both men and women. We asked, this is a question that the interviewer answered after completing the interview. We asked that whether any member of the household was present during the survey or not, and whether spouse was present, to what extent they discussed with their spouse, and then we use this information in our model to see whether that affected the decision making or not. And that worked pretty well. So in every cases we ran the female respondent, we say your husband has to be there, we are coming in this. So usually most cases husband or the male member was there. And we didn't experience any difficulty at that point anymore. Now the result. What happened? So the basic insurance result, when we looked at the full sample, see we have 62% male wanting to buy any type of insurance, whether it's pure insurance, pure savings. but only 38% female respondents wanted to buy insurance. And it's a significant difference, right? It's significantly higher number of men wanted to buy insurance and significantly lower number of women. Now, what caused this difference? That's one of the research questions. So we looked at insurance design. That is it the insurance design that invoked that kind of response? As you can see that the proportion is still the same no matter which product we look at. Then we looked at whether husband being present changes the decision. And I expected, before I looked at this number, I thought in cases where husband, spouse is present, women will be more likely to buy insurance because they can discuss with their husband. And when husband is not there, they don't know what decision to make. But that wasn't the case. It's still no significant difference. And what about decision-making power? Not much. Only in this particular case, we have seen a significantly lower amount of male respondents where household decisions are made in consultation with their wife. They didn't want to buy insurance. So yeah, it's not, the story is not clear. So the next question is that whether these responses that we found, all the answers that they have given, can we explain them by theoretically expected factors? Are they theoretically explainable? They are just noise. So what we did is we estimated a latent plus logic model. What this model does is it divides the sample into different groups based on their preferences. As when you look at these numbers here, these are utility from different products. As you can see, all these utility values are negative for one group, and all these utility values are positive. These are the people who want to buy insurance. They have a positive utility from any type of insurance. And the type is, if you look at the numbers, they're not very different. So that means doesn't matter the design, they are more likely to say yes to the insurance product. And here, they don't like insurance at all, particularly they hate savings, pure savings products. And then we have the premium and good time payment, bad time payment, and they have all theoretically expected value, so expected sign, and they're also highly statistically significant, except for here. If you look at these two values, they are equal. That means these respondents, these people in this group, they in fact want the entire money back. If they're giving 100 taka, they want 100 taka back if there is no disaster, and they don't care how much they are getting when there is a disaster. But here they want certain amount of money back, and they also willing to pay a certain amount of premium. And here they're significantly willing to spend more for flood and wind insurance compared to hail insurance. But this group they don't care whether it's hail. They're equally likely to buy an insurance regardless of the type of risk. Now, let's look at the gender gap aspect. So these are the gender variables. So if we look at just female, difference between male and female, in this group there is no difference, no significant difference between male and female. Although we see that the female are less likely to say yes to insurance, but this is not significant. But this another group, which is more pro-insurance group, there we see a significant difference, this utility women are getting from insurance products. And when we control for spouse being there, and even the amount of involvements women have in maize farming, and all the other theoretically expected factors like risk aversion, time factor, these numbers are still significant, which we can't explain. So one explanation could be, okay, women are more risk averse. So these financial instruments are new. You probably lack trust. You probably don't believe that you will be compensated. So because of those reasons, women don't like it. But the risk aversion factor don't explain it. We are controlling for risk aversion, but it's still quite significant and negative. So the conclusion from here is, from this model, is that so one of our hypotheses was that people like this kind of product more. So this is why we wanted to design a insurance saving mix. But our conclusion is that we don't have any evidence that farmers prefer insurance saving mix more than pure insurance and pure savings, because the utility in all these three products are more or less the same. There's no statistically significant difference. And those groups that don't like it, looks like they like pure insurance, they dislike pure insurance the least. Savings insurance mix second dislike, and pure savings is the most disliked product. And coming here, looking at heterogeneity among respondents, we know that women don't like insurance, but we don't have enough information. We can't explain why not. We know that women who are more involved into maize farming, they like insurance. They want to hedge against weather risk. And when the spouse was present, they're slightly less likely to accept insurance compared to the non-option. So there's a lot of questions there which we would like to investigate in a follow-up study. So what we are planning to do is we go back to these women, show them those choices again, and see whether they make, and this time there is no spouse present, and see whether they answer differently, whether it's a shyness issue that they were part of this extremely complicated survey. And also this insurance product was very complicated, explaining the trigger level and then showing them 3 different risks, whether that was intimidating for them and they just wanted to avoid all this fuss by just choosing none. It was the most easier way for them to deal with the survey, deal with the respondent rather than making a choice. So we want to explore those kind of issues in a follow-up survey next month. So the conclusion from this whole experience with regards to objective 2 is that if we revisit those 3 arguments that were given by our scientists, is that lack of female enumerators, we didn't find any evidence to support this argument. Men oppose women's participation, there was no such evidence. We did not find any evidence where men, husbands or male members or anybody in the community is stopping women from participating or also intervening where women were answering the question. The husband was sitting next to women quietly unless and until